What's up, guys? This is Kephas.
Today, we're going to check out the macro that I've created for Fire Mages in patch 11.5 of the War Within. And of all the known sequencer macros that I've made, this one is by far the most difficult, by a lot. I love Fire Mages, but I have spent a lot of time wrestling with this, trying to get something that works well enough, and also really thinking if it's even worth making a macro. But I decided reluctantly to go ahead and come up with something to share with people because I've had a lot of people ask me for this. So this is my best attempt at a gnome sequencer macro, okay? And before I get into it, I want to explain why this class is so hard, okay? So I will timestamp this one because I'm going to talk for a while because I want you to understand what you're getting from this and what you're losing from using a macro like this and why it's designed the way it is. So the thing about Fire Mage is that you actually don't have a lot of abilities, and really what you're dealing with the most is different procs. Obviously, the main thing is going to be heating up and hot streak, okay? And so what you have are like basically 3 abilities to make hot streak happen. You have Fireball, okay, or Frostfire Bolt if you're going with that spec with Frostfire. But your main goal is to basically, like, we're going to just kind of focus on the basics here and not get into too many advanced things, okay? You're trying to cast Fireball until you get heating up. You get a crit, right? Then you're trying to cast Phoenix Flames or Fire Blast to get hot streak. That's what you're trying to do. So if I put Fireball in a macro, and then I put Phoenix Flames in a macro, and I put Fire Blast in that macro as well, and Fire Blast especially is easy because it's off the global cooldown, I can make that macro, okay? But you will be missing out on so many hot streaks by doing that it will catastrophically hit your DPS. There are, like, when I make a macro, I always weigh, like, how much DPS am I losing by doing this? And sometimes it's a little bit more than I like. Sometimes it's just a little bit. It's like, okay, I'm missing out on some DPS because I'm not executing this flawlessly. I'm using a macro to do it, and the macro is doing the best it can, but I'm missing out on maybe a few percentages of DPS, but I'm making the class easier to play. That's how I weigh things, and I try my best to test things out the best that I am physically able to do with my disability, okay? And so that's why I always stress this, and I always say that when you use these, you're going to lower your damage ceiling. You just are. It's an honest, like, I'm not, like, I'm not trying to sell snake oil. I'm being, like, I always try to be sincere here. With Fire Mage, it's even more so, okay? Because, like I said, hot streak is a central part of your rotation, okay? And so beyond that, like, and that doesn't even get into, like, precasting and like all those the extra things that people do to get even more. This is just like a basic mechanic. Getting as many Fire Blast or hot streaks as you can so that you can use Pyroblast and Flame Strike. Both abilities which you really can't put in the macro either. So, like, you can't put those in. You can use modifiers for them if you want to, but you know, with Fire Blast Flame Strike, it's hard because it's a ground targeting ability. But, you know, with Pyroblast, you can't use it all the time. You only use it in certain circumstances, particularly when you get hot streak. And so that has to either be used as a modifier or you have to put it on a separate button. So you can't add that in. And then, like I said, I can put Phoenix Flames in, and I can put Fire Blast in and Fireball, and then you're going to use those as soon as you can, and you're not going to use them only when you have heating up, and that's where the problem comes in. So you see what I'm saying? So if I make a macro like that, it will drastically affect your DPS. So I'm doing a bit of a hybrid with this one, okay? It's still not ideal. I'm just going to be honest. It's still not ideal. You're still going to take a bit of a hit, but it's something to try and help make it a little bit easier if you want to run around as a Fire Mage and have some fun, okay? That's the goal here. And I want to make that more clear than I've ever made it before because it's important that people understand what they're getting out of this. And my goal is always, when I do these, is to try my best to give something accessible for people, okay? That's my goal as a disabled player. That's what I care about. That's my heart, and that's what this is for. So know what you're getting out of this, know that it's limited, and know how your class works and why it matters. And I hope that I've tried to explain that well. So I've tested this out a bit, and this is what I've come up with. Okay, so we're using modifiers. Okay, and Pyroblast and Flame Strike, just it's so much easier to just put those on separate buttons. Okay, and so with Alt, you can activate Blazing Barrier, and so that way you can keep your barrier up, and so that's a little bit helpful, I feel, for me. And then I've gone ahead and put Phoenix Flames in this macro. Okay, that is a crit, but I've added that in because it doesn't seem to hurt as bad as putting Flame Strike in, or Fire Blast in. Okay, get those names mixed up. Because Fire Blast is one that you use more often. It's a little bit more important, because of just getting to use it so much. But either way, Phoenix Flames is in here. The macro is going to use it on cooldown. It's not ideal, but it's going to simplify things. The macro is also going to use Combustion when it's available, so that's going to get thrown in there. And then if you hold down Control, the macro will use Fire Blast, and that can happen while you're using something else because it's off the global cooldown. So if you get heating up, you can hit down, keep spamming the macro, hold down Control, you will get a hot streak. And so the macro isn't going to be using up all your Fire Blasts. It still gives you some control over Fire Blast, literally by holding down Control. And that way, at least you'll have control over Fire Blast, and you can do that. You can also alternatively put Fire Blast on a separate button if you want to. But holding down Control, the macro will use Fire Blast for you while you're doing other things. Okay, so we get down to the second block. Again, it's all the same stuff, except we're adding in a Fireball, and then also hold down Shift, the macro will use Scorch. So if you're moving, hold down Shift, the macro will use Scorch instead of Fireball. Okay, and so the macro is going to prioritize Phoenix Flames because Phoenix Flames does have a cooldown, and so we are doing a priority 1, 1, 2, and so the macro will try twice for Phoenix Flames, and then once for Fireball or Scorch, whatever, and then of course the modifiers will do what they do, and also keeping Combustion on cooldown. And so that's what's going to happen. It's not going to save Phoenix Flames for Hot Streak, and then of course you have to use Control for Fire Blast, but that's basically the idea. So for the most part, the macro is just going to spam Fireball, and then occasionally, when it's available, it'll use Phoenix Flames. That can cause some issues in different ways. Obviously, with Hot Streak, also, if you're Frostfire, with the excess fire, excess frost, mechanics, that's obviously something else as well. But again, we're going for simplicity here. Again, this is primarily for you to run around and just mess around with the Fire Mage, and then of course, when you get Hot Streak, remember, you're going to have to use Pyroblast and Flame Strike on separate buttons. That's just the best way to do it. But then we get into the bottom. One last thing, the macro will cycle through this 10 times. So it'll hit this one twice, and then it'll hit this one once. It'll do that 10 times, and then occasionally it will try to use shifting power as well. And so it will use that, and that way it will, it'll help you reduce your cooldowns. And I feel like, doing it that way gives you plenty of time to use all of your abilities and get those on cooldown, and then occasionally, throwing in that shifting power. Again, you might want to remove this one, but I was just trying to add something else to it to make it a little bit more consolidating. So there you go. It does do some things. It does add a number of abilities to one button, which is nice, and it will make things a little bit more accessible for you. If you really want the macro to use Fire Blast, you don't want to use a modifier for it. This is going to cripple your DPS. Get rid of the mod control line, and the macro will just simply use Fire Blast on cooldown. You can do that if you want to. That's your deal, but you will get a lot more DPS if you learn to use control with Fire Blast. And so that's the idea. But this will at the very least simplify things a little bit for you. I'm sorry. Look, this is just one of those classes that the way it's designed, it's not very well macroable, and that's just the way. It's because of how the class is designed. So if you can manage this class without needing something, then try. Okay, for sure. Of all classes, this is definitely the one where I would recommend that. But if you want to run around and this helps you a little bit, then I feel like I should at least try to put it out there and see what happens. And yeah, and that's the idea. Just know my goal is to try to help people that need help, and that's just what this is. I would use this. This is a class that I like, and I like the way it looks, and I think that the design is pretty fun, but it is hard for me to do. It's hard for me to track, the different procs. Even with Weak Wars, I try my best. You'll see the gameplay footage. I'm trying. This does help some. And honestly, like, it's not the worst. I don't feel like I lose too much. Compared to like putting Fire Strike in or Fire Blast in. I did it again. But still, it definitely is one that it's not easy. It's not the easiest thing in the world. So either way, yeah, there you guys go. Like I said, this was a hard one, but I definitely wanted to get it out there for you. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And so certainly if you have any suggestions or thoughts, obviously there's a lot going on right now with one button rotations, with things that Blizzard's announced. We'll be talking about that soon. But either way, I really do hope that you appreciate and understand where I'm coming from with this one. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. With all that being said, I will see you guys on the next one.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button. And feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is Kephas. Until next time.